I've got two of the exact same mouthpiece, but one's plastic and one's metal. This metal one costs $180 and the plastic one costs $35. Is it really worth spending 5 times more for the metal mouthpiece when I could just play the plastic one? Well, that's what we're gonna find out in today's video. If you haven't been following along, here's the short version of my journey. I started with Ventsure's FitKit to see if I could build a mouthpiece that made the upper register a little more reliable. The result of this experiment was that I landed on a mouthpiece I really liked. The upper register felt easier, the pitch was more stable, the sound was clear. I thought I might be done with the process. But after I played it some more, there were definitely some problems. Playing soft on this mouthpiece was way harder than my old mouthpiece, and endurance felt off. I got tired faster than normal. So I got together with Doug and we made 3 new designs, and he had them 3D printed in plastic so I could test them cheaply. One of those variations stood out right away. That's the one I ordered in metal. Now, the question is, does the metal sound enough better to make it worth the price? All right, before I roll this test for you, I need to be honest. Things did not go the way I expected. I'm actually filming this the day after I filmed my first set of tests and the introduction you just watched. In fact, I had an entire script written based on what I thought was going to happen in these tests, but after I listened back to my first set of recordings, things changed. To start, behind the bell, the difference between these mouthpieces feels huge. There's really no comparison in my mind. I liked the sound and the feel of the plastic mouthpiece, but the metal mouthpiece feels like it has way more body and resonance. So what I thought was gonna happen is I would just go down to my garage with my iPhone, record some side-by-side recordings, and the difference would just be obvious. But it wasn't that simple. I wanna play for you a few clips from this first round of recordings. So when I got back here and I listened back to the recordings, I was pretty shocked that the difference between the mouthpieces was not nearly as big as I thought it was going to be. Like I said, I had written a script based on what I thought the takeaway was going to be, which is the plastic is good, but the metal was better. So after listening to that first round, I was like, can it really be this close? It just doesn't seem possible. So what I did is I went back to my garage, but this time I brought my good equipment. I have my nice camera, which doesn't really matter, but I did bring a nice pair of Omni microphones because I wanted to see would these better microphones capture the difference that I thought was there more clearly. Here's what those sounded like. Now, with this better gear, yeah, I think the difference does come through a little bit more. The metal does have more resonance and body, just like I feel when I'm playing, but even then, it still wasn't as dramatic as I expected. So here's what I learned in this test. As the player, this feels like a night and day difference for these mouthpieces. As a listener, I think it's pretty noticeable, but the plastic it keeps up better than I thought it would. Going through this process with Vennture has been a pretty cool experience. What started as a video to highlight their incredibly valuable classic FitKit has led me to having a mouthpiece that fits me really well. It makes the trumpet easier than it was on my previous equipment, which is pretty cool. Thinking back to my trial with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra as principal trumpet, I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I had this setup back then. Now, with Philadelphia coming up, I'm hoping I can not only recreate the things that went well in Atlanta, but maybe even play better with this new mouthpiece. And I think for you watching, the bigger point is this. Most players are on equipment that's fine. It fits them pretty well, but it might not be the best fit. Going through a process like what I've gone through with Vennture could give you something that makes your playing more consistent, more confident, and just easier overall. And that can make a huge difference. So to answer the question from the beginning of this video, is the metal mouthpiece worth 5 times the cost of the plastic mouthpiece? Yeah, I think so. But again, the difference isn't as big as I thought it would have been. So if you go through this process like I did and you end up with a 3D printed plastic mouthpiece and you're not sure yet if you want to spring for the metal version, you could probably get away with using the plastic mouthpiece. You could play it on a gig, I think it would blend well in a section, and I think it could just pass for a really solid trumpet sound until you're able to make up your mind. But long term, yeah, I think ultimately it is very worth it to have the mouthpiece plated in metal for all of those sound and resonance reasons. So what about you? I'd love to know what your thoughts are about the differences between the plastic and metal mouthpiece that we covered in this video. And if you haven't seen my previous video where I play tested these 3 3D printed mouthpiece variations that Doug made for me, click the video on the screen and we'll see you in the next video.